And in this webinar, we're going to focus on the West Coast and the Rocky Mountains region, which covers Utah, Colorado, the Great American West, and of course, California. Our expert panel today is Jenny Bridgman, who is Account Director for Visit Utah, Lisa Cooper, Director of Trade and Representation for the Great American West, Emma Westman, who is the Communications Director at Black Diamond with responsibility for Visit California, and Jim O'Dwyer, who's also a director with Black Diamond, but who's in charge of the Visit Colorado account. Lisa Cooper, I'm going to start with you. The Great American West, as much an idea in time and history as it is a defined place. So what are the states covered here?
Bjorn, it's a big area and covers much of the American Rocky Mountains. So it's made up of 5 states, and that is Montana, Wyoming, Idaho, North Dakota, and South Dakota. And the region includes big bucket list icons such as Yellowstone National Park, Glacier National Park, and Mount Rushmore.
Jenny Bridgman, when you talk about the American West, invariably we can also add Utah, its 5 national parks. Can you tell us a bit more about the parks and how we can visit them?
Yes, there are some of the most incredible landscapes you'll ever see across Utah. Our 5 national parks are called the Mighty 5. So that's Arches, Bryce Canyon, Canyonlands, Capitol Reef and Zion National Park. And they're all located across southern Utah. And there's lots of scenic byways linking them all together. So they're best visited on a fly drive holiday by car or by motorhome, and they're all really, really different. So Arches has got more than 2,000 naturally formed arches. Bryce Canyon is an amphitheatre of rock spires called hoodoos. Canyonlands been carved by the Green and Colorado rivers, and it's very much like the Grand Canyon. Capitol Reef is a variety of rock formations, and Zion is a huge canyon of towering sandstone cliffs.
What airport would you fly into if you're going to do a fly drive?
I think you've got 2 options really. For the Mighty 5 national parks, the closest airport is actually going to be Las Vegas in Nevada, but there's also Salt Lake International Airport as well. So various connecting flights from across the states into Salt Lake as well.
Jim O'Dwyer, Colorado is also part of cowboy country. But if you were to pick the top 5 attractions that the state has to offer, what would they be?
So because most people are going to fly into Denver, I'd certainly recommend 48 hours in the Mile High City, getting used to the altitude and perhaps going and checking out the Red Rocks Amphitheatre, which is the US's favorite outdoor concert venue. We also have got lots of scenic byways. In fact, we've got more scenic byways in the state than any other state in the United States. So definitely worth jumping in your car and getting out and exploring. We've got 4 national parks, but to be honest, most of the state is a national park if you come from Ireland. So jump in your car, pretty much every turn and every corner is another spot to jump out, take a photo. We're also famous, obviously, for outdoor adventure. That's all 4 seasons, not just skiing in the winter, but year round. And then wherever you go throughout the states, we've got lots and lots of hot springs. So after a day in the car or sightseeing and hiking in the beautiful mountains, jump out and have a soak in one of our natural hot springs.
Very good. And of course, then last but certainly not least, there's California, which really needs no introduction, Emma Westman, but perhaps some of us or a lot of us mightn't appreciate just one, how big the state is, and secondly, just how wide the range of experiences it has to offer.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's probably one of the things that people, when they're planning a trip to California, they can maybe feel a little overwhelmed just because of the sheer size. I think you can fit something like 5 or 6 islands in California, just to give you a bit of a kind of an idea of how big it is. But I say this, you could literally go there and do anything you want. Like it caters to all holiday makers. So if you're looking for the city vibes, you want to kind of soak up a little bit of the Mexican culture in San Diego, and then you can hit some of the beaches and try surfing and up Highway 1. You can get that proper like LA experience, and then up to San Francisco. If you really want to focus on nature, obviously the national parks are incredible. You've got desert, you've got mountains, you've got forests, coastline, wine country. And I think one of the things, I say mountains, you can actually ski in California as well. A lot of people don't know that. Obviously, Theo and I took you out to California, and we did skiing and surfing in one day. An incredible experience. So yeah, I think it's just whatever kind of holiday you're looking for, and if you're families or you want to go with friends, or you want a romantic trip, like we have it all. I think the only thing California doesn't have is a rainforest, but you could probably find that somewhere in I'm sure somewhere in Silicon Valley it's being made.
I was going to say, I'm sure some rich Uber billionaire has designed his own personalized or her own personalized rainforest. Lisa, size, as you said, is a huge consideration in the Great American West, these 5 states that cover such a vast area of the country. So I guess my obvious question is, what would be the best way for Irish visitors to arrive in the area and then to explore the area?
Well, there's quite a few options of how people can get there. Generally, the most common way is to go to Denver, into Colorado. People can do some time in Colorado before heading into sort of the Great America West. But one of the great things about the different airports and the different towns around the area is that all the smaller airports are very easy to manage, and they're connecting. So you can get connecting flights from Minneapolis, from Seattle, from Denver, from Salt Lake City, and go into one of the smaller towns in one of the states. And it's very easy. I think the Irish are probably quite adventurous in the fact that they don't mind doing a stop before they get to their final destination. And then the best way to explore is behind the wheel of a car or an RV and get on the open road. I mean, all 5 states combine to make up one epic road trip. And I would suggest that the clients, if your clients will need at least 3 weeks to do this properly, and that gives usually 1 or 2 nights in each of the destinations overnight. If they've got less time, you can kind of drill it down. Rather than doing all 5 states, you could maybe sort of shorten it and do Idaho, Wyoming, and Montana, or you could just take in the 2 Dakotas, or Wyoming, Montana, North and South Dakota. There are so many options and so many ways that you can do it, but all of it's kind of its own little adventure. The one thing I would definitely recommend, though, is to spend at least 3 nights to explore Yellowstone National Park. She's a big beauty, and she's got lots to offer. So definitely dedicate some time there. And if you want to book early and get to stay inside the park, you've got to book very, very early out. If not, the surrounding gateway towns are very good. And then finally, I know the Irish have a love of horses, so they might well enjoy a ranching holiday too. And we've got plenty of ranches in every state that can tick off the boxes for any level of riding.
And Lisa, I mean, this is a general question that applies to everybody, perhaps less in California, because we know that it's well set up for all kinds of tourism. Wherever you are, even away from the big ticket items like Yellowstone, there is a good tourist infrastructure. So say, for instance, you had a family that's doing a drive holiday, they can arrive somewhere and find somewhere to stay with relative ease.
It depends on where you are going in any part of any state. I mean, if you are going closer to the hot ticket items like Mount Rushmore, and the parks, then it is advisable to book in advance.
Sure.
Some of the smaller towns, like Bozeman in Montana or whatever, you could probably find a good sort of like 3-star accommodation, depending on the holidays, public holidays, bank holidays, like they are in over here in sort of like an Ireland. If there's a public holiday, things get busy, so it is advisable to sort of try and manage those dates before sort of like sending your clients off. Labor Day, for example, all the Americans go out, they want to celebrate it, so there's very availability becomes restricted.
In Utah, Jenny, besides the 5, I'm going to say world famous national parks, what else is there to see in Utah? I think of Salt Lake City, and then I confess that I don't have a huge knowledge beyond that.
Well, I think one of the most important things to advise clients is that there is so much to see and do in Utah, and they need to make time for not just the national parks, because there's so much else close by and across the state. So state parks like Kodachrome Basin, Coral Pink Sand Dunes, Goblin Valley, they're just as spectacular as the national parks. I mean, anywhere else they would be a national park, very similar to what Jim said. The whole of Utah could be a national park. Monument Valley is right on the border of Utah and Arizona, and that's a really big bucket list location for the USA, and anyone visiting the USA. I mean, it appears in posters, brochures, it's been in many a Western film. So that's...
I was going to say, this is the place where John Ford shot a ton of his Westerns. It's that ubiquitous landscape of the American West.
Absolutely. It's those famous two mittens surrounded by all sorts of other rock formations as well. The likes of Forrest Gump has been filmed there, loads of Western shows, great to explore, some really, really great off-road adventures. And what most people don't know is that it isn't a national park. It's actually on the Navajo reservation. So the best way to experience it is through a guided tour with a member of the tribe, and you really get to experience it from their perspective and what it means to them as well. But you mentioned Salt Lake City. I absolutely love the north, and that's where Salt Lake is. And it's a complete contrast to the south of Utah. You're in the mountains, you're in the Rocky Mountains, so it's lush and green, some really beautiful mountain towns to explore. And then there's the Great Salt Lake as well. And on Great Salt Lake is Antelope Island State Park, which is the largest island actually within the lake. Fantastic views across Salt Lake City towards the mountains on one side, and then the other side, vast views across the lake. Plus there's a herd of free roaming bison, and they're just the most mesmerizing, massive animal. And then one other thing I always tell people to do when they go to Utah is there is this constantly expanding number of certified international dark sky places in Utah. So this is where there's very little light pollution. The stargazing is absolutely phenomenal. And Utah has the largest concentration of international dark sky parks anywhere in the world. Those mighty 5 national parks, they're all international dark sky parks. Many of the state parks are as well, and some of the small towns as well. So definitely a top tip for an evening activity is stargazing.
Absolutely. And if you're a photographer, you can't find anywhere better. Jim, imagine I'm going to fly into Colorado, I'm flying into Denver, but I decide, you know what, I'm not going to do that much driving. I understand that there's some awesome scenic train journeys through the Rocky Mountains that I could take if I wanted.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, Colorado is fairly unique in this, in that you don't actually need a car to get around if you really don't want to. We're really excited that this year, along with Utah, with which we share the route, we have the Rocky Mountaineer, which starts in, well, either Denver in Colorado or Moab in Utah. And then they run 2 routes, which go 2 days long through Glenwood Springs for a night. And of course, you go through all of the spectacular Rocky Mountains and then into the mesas and red rocks over in Utah. So that's going to be very, very popular, given the number of people who have done that up in Canada, of course. Well, they're now doing it down Colorado, Utah. But also around the state, because Colorado is founded on silver mining, we've got a lot of the old mining railroads, which have now been done up. And there are 8 of these scenic and historic railroads around the state. So pretty much wherever you are, you can go on one of these day trips, or some of them are as short as an hour or 2. And they are a really good look back at the history of Colorado, the history of the West. And very many of them visit some of the 1,500 ghost towns that we also have dotted around the state as well. So that's a really fun thing to do when you're in state as well.
Emma, there is a ghost town in California that I'm particularly fond of called Bodie. But let's say, and as you said earlier on, you can visit California in a myriad different ways. It offers holiday experiences for every kind of visitor. But let's say you are going as a family. Talk to me a little bit about California as a family destination.
Well, I would say it depends on what time of year you're looking to go, because if just because we've spoken a little bit about skiing, if you were going to go in winter, it would be really cool to combine a mountain experience with something along the beach side. So you could do Mammoth Mountain and then kind of over to San Francisco and do that Highway 1 journey, which you can still do outside of ski season. You're just obviously going to get a different experience on the mountain there. I'd say kind of, you know, how some of the other states are, the north and the south is so different. So if you really want to get the best of a family experience, I would try and combine the two. So you can do kind of Northern California, you know, Sacramento, you can go gold panning with the kids and learn about sort of the gold history there, which is fascinating. Go over to San Francisco and you've got, you know, Alcatraz and cycling on bikes over the Golden Gate Bridge, that kind of proper American experience. And then, you know, get the kids out and have them try surfing in Santa Cruz and going, you know, further down Highway 1, San Luis Obispo, beautiful, beautiful part of the state, and you can get them out hiking. You can, have all kinds of different food experiences. You can go on boat trips. You can go sea otter spotting. So you can really combine the kind of city and the outdoors. And then obviously, as you get further south, you've got all the theme parks as well. So
are they open again?
They are, yes. Yeah. So from the 15th of June, a couple of weeks ago, that was sort of California's Freedom Day, where they lifted the restrictions. So now they're open to out-of-state visitors. And what I would recommend if anyone is thinking of going is just check on each theme park website, sort of what their restrictions, if any, are. Some of them are, doing reservation systems. Some of them are kind of operating again at full capacity. And they each have different rules about, where you need to wear masks and that kind of thing. But yep, they are open, which is amazing, very exciting for us. And there's just so many to pick from. There's obviously the big ones, the Universals and the Disneys, or you've got Knott's Berry if you kind of want to do those roller coasters. And then down in San Diego, obviously you've got SeaWorld and you've got the zoo. So I think just for families, you can really combine city fun, coastal fun, like a bit of educational learning out in wildlife as well. And then of course, when they see something completely different, they can hop over to Greater Palm Springs and see the desert, which is kind of mind-blowing for a kid, I think.
Jenny mentioned Native American culture in Utah earlier on, Lisa, but a huge part, obviously, of the story of the American West is connected to Native American culture. Is there still a strong thread of it in your 5 states, and where can visitors experience it?
There really is it's still a strong thread, and you can learn a lot about Native American culture and history in all of the 5 different states. One kind of tip I would give, though, is it's definitely worth trying to visit more than one tribe on a visit, because it's like visiting different countries. Each tribe has its own language, its own traditional dress and dance and cuisine. For example, the tours of the get my teeth in. The tours of Battle of Little Bighorn in Montana are all run by the local Lakota and Cheyenne tribes. So they tell it from their perspective. We've heard of the Battle of Little Bighorn because of Custer and his last stand, but it's really interesting to hear it from the other side. Also, we've got the brand new MHA Nation Interpretive Center, which has literally just opened last month, where visitors can learn about the Mandan, Hidatsu and Arikara people of North Dakota. But really exciting, also in North Dakota, they host every year the United Tribes International Powwow. Every September, 70 tribes from across the country gather together, and they take part in these native traditions such as dancing, drumming, singing, arts and craft, food. It's very, very competitive, but it's actually quite compelling viewing as well. So these are the kind of the big hit items, but anywhere you go in the state, they've all got their own different tribes, and you can learn about them in different museums along the way.
If you are looking for something a more contemporary pursuit, Emma referred to skiing in Mammoth. Salt Lake City hosted the 2002 Winter Olympics, Jenny. So tell us a bit about Utah as a winter sports destination.
Well, in Utah, we like to say that we have the greatest snow on earth. And it's light, it's fluffy, it's powdery, and there's just absolutely loads of it. There's 15 resorts across Utah, and the slopes are very, very different to Europe, wide open, hardly anybody on them. It's really, really fantastic skiing. I think maybe Park City is probably the most famous and the largest of all the resorts. And it's actually a historic old mining town, so really continuing that mining history that Jim mentioned earlier, that is really prevalent in the West. It's still got that very traditional Western look. It's got some lively bars, craft breweries, and even a distillery. But the skiing experience is very different to what we know in Utah, and I think it's really quite special. And as you mentioned, it was the home to the Olympics. So just outside Park City is one of the main Olympic parks. The bobsleigh track is still there. The ski jumps are still there. They do this incredible guided tour, which literally takes you to the very top of the ski jump so you can look straight down it. And it is really quite mind-blowing just how far and how steep it is. And then you can also have a go on the bobsleigh track, and that runs in winter and summer. In the summer, they put it on wheels, and it's on a dry track. And then in the winter, it's the traditional icy track as well. Salt Lake City and the surrounding resorts are actually going to be the USA's next bid for the Winter Olympics as well. So we don't know when that's going to be, but we're definitely looking forward to it. And something else really to mention about winter in Utah is that it's a real alternative way to experience those mighty 5 national parks. Really great time to visit them. They take on a whole new personality, and you may even have a little bit of a dusting of snow over them as well.
Jim, obviously we can't talk about Colorado without talking about winter sports. I mean, some of the most famous ski resorts in all of North America are in the States. So what makes the resorts so special other than they are incredibly popular? What makes them so popular, I guess?
Well, I think really it's Jenny hit the nail on the head. It's the fact that compared to the European resorts, they are very uncrowded. The snow is almost certainly going to be better unless you hit a particularly sweet week elsewhere. It's the dining and the nightlife in a lot of the resorts now compares to some of the best resorts in Europe, which it never used to. 10, 15 years ago, that was always a criticism leveled at North American skiing in general, I would say, but they've really upped their game now. All of the activities beyond the slopes as well. Many of our resorts do obviously still get a lot of skiers in winter, but the percentage of visitors who do not ski is increasing, which is purely down to the fact of all of the other great things that you can do in the resort as well. And one thing I'd like to say is that whereas the European resorts have not had practice operating in a COVID environment, the American resorts and the Colorado resorts particularly have. They were open all of last season, so their protocols have been in place now for 4 or 5 months, and they're getting very good and very polished at running the resorts with restrictions in place. So hopefully when the States allows us in and vice versa, and we all head over the pond for a bit of skiing, it will mean that there won't be any of the teething problems that we think some of the European resorts are going to get.
That's a very good point to make, I think, and important one to emphasize is that they've been COVID ready. We will come into their second season of COVID readiness. Emma, a lot of the US athletes who participate in winter sports at the Winter Olympics, I didn't realize until relatively recently, but a lot of them would have trained in Mammoth. So when you're talking earlier on about, you can, in one day in California, you can ski in the morning and go surfing in the afternoon. This isn't just a throwaway line. Mammoth Lakes is a large and well-established winter sports resort.
Yeah. And it's, a lot of the athletes train up there because it's a very high altitude. So Mammoth Mountain is California's highest peak. So it really gets them in kind of good physical fitness. Even as a visitor, when you go there, you realize, if you go for a beer in the evening and then you've got to walk back up your steps to your hotel room, you're like, oh, that's really hit home. That it's it's a fantastic little mountain town, and it's got a real friendly community vibe. What people imagine kind of that California beach life, that sort of surfer culture, you transport that up to the mountain, and that's what you get there. It's a fantastic place for the athletes to train. Great for anyone kind of any level of skiing really. If families, as the others have said, the beauty of those US ski resorts is you can get runs to yourself, and really quiet midweek as well, because a lot of the kind of domestic travel comes from weekends. So it's a perfect place for people to go learn, and the level of service I think that you find on American mountains and the friendliness is something that they don't have as much of in Europe. And then up in Tahoe, which is just up the Highway 395 from Mammoth, they've got a fantastic load of ski resorts as well around the lake. And if you want family time, North Star's brilliant for that. If you're a bit more of an expert skier, then you can do Score Alpine, which is where they hosted the Winter Olympics back in the 60s. So there's a real kind of variety of experiences you can have. And then, as I was saying, all these mountain resorts in the summer, they're adventure playgrounds. They have incredible hiking, amazing biking trails, and just all so close to national parks as well. So if you're in Mammoth in the summer, you can hop over to Yosemite and sort of do a really nice kind of outdoor combined experience. So I think sometimes people just think of the coastline when they think of California, but really the other side, east side of the state is just as special, and incredible scenery, and just a kind of different experience, really.
I want to pivot to food and drink, which is obviously key to everybody's experience of a holiday. Lisa, in the American West, talk to me about the cuisine that we might expect. Is it international? Is there a specific cuisine that's relevant to the area? I want to eat. What am I going to eat?
Party food in the Great America West. Think steak and burgers.
Right.
But there are also some local dishes. One of the alternatives to a normal beef burger is the bison burger, which is really, really tasty. It's a lot leaner than beef and so fewer calories. The Native American cuisine also includes a form of a taco, which is normally made up of a mince mixture, and it's got cheese and chilies and lettuce and olives and tomatoes and sour cream, all on their own sort of Native American fry bread. And that's quite a nice, unique sort of taste to the area as well. What you don't know is that Idaho and Montana are famous for their wild huckleberries. And the huckleberries are very similar to blueberries, but with just a different kind of taste to them. And I can highly recommend a huckleberry mojito. But if you're driving, why not try the huckleberry milkshake or an ice cream? It's really, really tasty. And then, of course, Idaho's famous for its potatoes. And
of course.
Chips, baked, boiled, fried, you name it. So can't forget the Idaho potato.
I mean, it's a poor rival to Ireland, of course, but we'll allow it. Jenny, if I was to pick the kind of typical Utah dish, is there a dish I need to try if I'm there?
That's a really tough one, actually. I'm not sure I would say there's a real classic dish. I think what most people won't know about Utah is that it has some really quite renowned restaurants in some really small towns.
Okay.
Which is, it's really surprising. Just, take the scenic byway between Bryce and Capitol Reef National Parks. There's a tiny town that we would class as a village called Boulder, and I think it's probably got 3 restaurants that are nationally acclaimed in the USA and that have won awards. There's the Bear Trail Grill, there's Devil's Backbone Grill, and then there's one of these very classic American food truck stops as well, which has a real eclectic mix of things. But I don't think you would really pick out a really major food stuff. Of course, you've got the salt from the Great Salt Lake, and Utah is the beehive state, so it makes great honey. Also, really great atmosphere for making chocolate, surprisingly. It's a really dry atmosphere, and that makes that fluffy, powdery snow also great for making chocolate. Who knew?
So there you go. Honey, chocolate, and really good salt. There are 3 things I want to take back from my trip to Utah. Emma, it seems that every food trend in the entire world originates in California, almost in the area around San Francisco. So looking ahead to our next visit, what are the trends we should be on the lookout for?
It's not a trend, but everyone should, on their next visit, go to In-N-Out Burger. That is a must. It's a California classic, and you go there and you order animal style, and it's I think it's actually it's a it's a cheeseburger, but it's California done a sort of healthy cheeseburger way. So I always say that to people, whatever you do, make sure you go to In-N-Out. I'd also recommend people look at the California Michelin Guide, which came out a couple of years ago. It was the first state to have a total food guide. And obviously, you were saying the Bay Area has a lot of good food trends and a lot of Michelin stars up around there. But the guide also looked at little local restaurants that are doing unique things there, and just a guide to, if you're driving, where you should stop off and have some food. So I always recommend people check that out as well. When you're in LA, I think one of the best things about the city is the kind of fusion of different cultures you have in all the neighborhoods. So Koreatown is always doing incredible things. So make sure, and it's a very small area of LA, so a lot of people don't go there, but I would always recommend go to LA and have an amazing dinner in Koreatown. And then, West Hollywood, that's got a lot of cool stuff going on, a lot of cool chefs and opening up new restaurants, and kind of, a lot of the new hotels coming through have that sort of, I suppose, higher restaurant service these days. So yeah, West Hollywood's a good spot. And then down to San Diego for some Cali Baja food. that's kind of, yeah, as I said, before, the Mexican influence where it's coming in. So you get this really cool kind of US meets Mexico vibe, and just, yeah, some of the best tacos I've ever had in my life, and fresh fish and everything. So whatever, whatever you're kind of looking for in different areas of the state, you're going to find it. And obviously banging salads as well, which no one really ever thinks the salad's going to be amazing, but you'll be pretty amazed in California.
And then finally, Jim, Denver hosted IPW, what is it, 2-3 years ago, whatever it was. And one of the things that struck me was the degree to which Denver had undergone this incredible urban renaissance, and, incredible restaurants, some fine hotels. This is very much a city that has an international dimension to it now, does it not?
You've got to think that historically, not many people were from Colorado. Big mountains, not very easy to get around, a lot of snow in winter and so on. So really, most of the population in Colorado have come from somewhere else. So we get that huge kind of melting pot of cultures, particularly within Denver, which is a huge city. And I would have said that maybe, 20, 15 years ago, if you'd visited, you probably would have been on your way up to the mountains. You would have driven straight through the center of Denver without giving it a second look. Like many big old industrial cities, it's undergone a huge regeneration, as you said, in the last 15 years particularly. And now it is absolutely worth 24 hours minimum, 48 hours much better. It's just a wonderful place. It's why so many people are moving to Colorado. I believe that we've got, I think, the biggest inward net migration of any state in the United States. People want to come and live in Colorado because of the great outdoors. It's the healthiest state, would you believe it, in the United States. So less overweight people in Colorado than anywhere else. Maybe that's because everyone's out, trail walking or biking or hiking or doing all this great stuff all the time. I don't know, but it's a healthy state. It's a great place to be. And yes, very, very multicultural.
Well, on that very positive note, I want to thank everybody for taking part in the travel trade webinar. My thanks to Visit USA for putting it all together, but particularly my thanks to my guests, Jenny Bridgman, Account Director for Visit Utah, Lisa Cooper, Director of Trade and Representation for the Great American West, Emma Westman, Communications Director at Black Diamond and responsible for Visit California, and Jim O'Dwyer, who is a Director with Black Diamond, but has the Visit Colorado account under his belt. My thanks to you all for taking part. It's been great. Thank you.